Now in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the full training that I delivered on how to hit your tech sales quota every single quarter using an elite framework for reverse engineering your deals. I'll show you how to stop obsessing over calendar dates and end of Q4 deadlines and instead working backwards from the buyer's real problem so you can build a plan that actually gets them to a solution and get you to a predictable close. This is the exact framework I use for my private clients, and in this video, you're gonna get the full version so you can apply it directly to your own pipeline. And today is all about helping you win Q4, helping you improve your execution of your deals, and helping you avoid being the rep that blows their forecast. Now, before I do that, because a lot of this is tied to your action plans and mutual plans. So I'd love to just do a quick sentiment in the chat. And for folks, if you're newer to the call, if you're not driving, I ask that you be on camera, be present. Because if you're not on camera, if you're not driving, I'm assuming you're multitasking. And if you're not multitasking, if you're multitasking, I don't even know why the hell you're here. So, quick pulse in the chat. I just want to know yes or no for now. First question is, do you use mutual plans in your deals? Yes or no? Yes or no, it's okay. People at different stages of the journey. Maybe use it sometimes, you can say sometimes, maybe use it always. Just want to get a sense of that. All right, I'm seeing yeses, I'm seeing nos, I'm seeing sometimes. Love it, I love the honesty. All right, I love Michael Gary. I do, but likely incorrectly. Maybe, we'll find out in a minute. But that's what you're here for, you're here to learn, you're here to grow. All right, now, raise your hand if you've ever forecasted a deal and it didn't make the forecast. You're like, hey boss, I know this one's coming in, then it doesn't come in. Raise your hand. Anyone ever happened to them? Look, if your hand's not up, I already know you're a liar, because it happens to all of us. It happens to all of us. It's happened to me too. And I know that feeling sucks. So the process I'm going to talk you through is a way to simplify how you think about running your deals in a way that aligns you as a true partner with the buyers, and you're not trying to sell them. And by you doing this, you are going to be way more effective. But I'm going to give you an interesting stat. So here's the stat right here. It's less than 50%. What do you think that represents? Throw it in the chat. Whoever's yawning, please mute yourself. Not what I want to hear. Throw it in the chat. What do you think that 50% represents? People meet their forecast. Good guess. Deals close 1 in December. Another good guess. People use MAP. Another solid guess. So this was a data point from Gartner. Everyone knows who Gartner is? Raise your hand. So Gartner surveyed sales leaders. And this is the survey. The sales leaders say less than 50%, just shy of 50% of sales leaders have confidence in their forecast. So let's think about this. Your bosses, less than half of them are confident in the forecast that you're giving them. Less than half of them, okay? Now, I'm going to give you some benchmarks of thinking about forecast accuracy. When I'm talking about forecast accuracy, typically I'm talking to sales leaders. The reason why I want you to understand this concept is because one of the ways that helps set you up to be an elite rep is to act as the CEO of your business, and that's why you want to understand this concept. So here's the benchmark for forecast accuracy. If you are I call this a weak sales org. That means you have a 50% or less accuracy rate. If you're an average sales org, basically 75% accuracy. If you're a high performance org, you have a 90% plus accuracy rate. Now, what does that mean? If I forecast $1 million to come in this month, this quarter, whatever the forecasting cycle is, am I going to land within 90% of that or more? So 900K or more, 750K or more. That's what we're looking at. So this is the reality of the situation. Now, one of the things that after I had those embarrassing moments where I looked like a fool on a forecasting call, I said, never again. I'm going to study what actually moves the needle in my deals. And that's where what I'm about to teach you came into play. But it's important that you know this, because if you're the rep that is always saying deals are coming in and they're not, and you have to be honest with yourself, if you're that rep, you're a big reason why leaders are not confident in their forecast. You're the problem child, and we don't want to be the problem child. So I'm going to talk to you about a way to think about working through your deals. Now, here's what most reps do. So what most reps do is they'll say, hey, this is today. Today's December 2nd, right? And then what they'll do is they'll work with their buyer, their champion, whoever it is, their point of contact. And if they're an average rep, they'll say, hey, help me understand the steps that go into you guys making a decision. Sound familiar? All right. That's what an average rep is going to do. And then they're going to align with them on those steps. So they'll say, all right, today, I'll outline the steps, and then I'm going to get you to a decision. All right. That's what average reps do. And if this sounds familiar, if this is how you operate, you're in the right place, because we're going to fix that. Now, here's what good reps do. Good reps, they'll say, hey, help me understand the steps that go into their process so that you can make a decision. And then, when would you like to have this go live by? And then, when would you like to start to get value? Okay. So if your goal is to make a decision by December 30th, it's Q4, end of the year, what are the steps that need to go into that? Disco, demo, technical, scoping, whatever that is, business case, you name it. What are those steps? And then the savvy ones, they're thinking beyond the decision, because the mistake here is this is very self-serving. This has nothing to do with value for the customer. This is only about you getting your deal done in your timeline. And this is why this rep, the average rep, this is why this rep never gets the deals done on time. And when they do get them in, they have to scrape and claw and salvage the deal and discount like crazy to get across the finish line. All right, this is very self-serving. The good reps, they're saying, hey, it's not only about me, it's about you too, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. I also got to make sure that you're seeing value out of this solution. So when are you trying to have this problem solved? When are you trying to realize that value? And when are you trying to have this go live by? So if you're trying to have this value done by Q2 of next year, okay, well, typically it takes us 3 months to implement. So that tees us up for a decision December 31st. So what are the steps that need to happen between now and December 31st in order to do that? Y'all follow that? Y'all see the difference between an average rep and a good rep? This isn't an elite rep. This is still good, though. This is still better than most. Who here, be honest, this is rep A. This is rep B. Raise your hand if you're more like rep A right now. Ooh, okay. All right. I love it. Rep B. Who's here more like rep B? All right. So the A reps, easy win for you. Go beyond decision. Think about go live and value. Because we have to reverse engineer that into our plan. Y'all follow that? So that's an easy win for you. You do that right now. Because by doing that, it's not just self-serving, which is what most reps do, but it's also helping align on value for them. We good there? All right. Now, I'm going to talk about what do savages do? What do the elite do? So there's 6 steps. 6 steps. So I'm going to erase this. So, and then we're going to I'm going to put good here for reference. So good is today, decision, go live, value. Here's what an elite rep does. An elite rep, what they're starting with is not where we're at today. Where we're starting with is problem solved. So here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing with your point of contact, with your champion. This is the talk track that you are going to use. And you're using this ASAP for all of your deals, not just Q4, but all of your deals. You're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Champion, what is the drop dead date that you need to have this problem solved by? Asked another way, if this problem isn't solved a day after that day, what happens? So you said you want to increase rep productivity and get a 1.5x increase in rep productivity by the end of Q2. So let me ask you a question. What happens in Q3 if you're not at a 1.5x? And we're starting there. We're not even talking about anything else until we have clear on the problem has to be solved. This is the drop dead date. This is so important because what a big mistake that reps make, even the good reps, they go through this whole process, but we're pushing today towards value. But what I'm going to walk you through is going from push to pull. And they're going to pull the deal forward for you by you being effective in how you have this conversation with them. That's the key difference of what we're doing here. So what are the consequences to you and the company if you do not get this problem solved or achieve that goal by X date? That's what we're doing. We follow this so far. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll answer them as I go if I can. Otherwise, I'm going to make sure you have time at the end for Q&A. Okay? There's no silly questions. We're all learning. So number one, we're starting with the problem solved. Then we go to realize value. Hey, the drop dead date of when you need to hit X goal is the end of Q2. Come hell or high water, it's got to be solved by then. We're clear on that, yes? Okay. So in order for us to do this, there is a process where we begin to realize value. Because if we turn on software, it doesn't automatically achieve all your hopes and dreams. In spite of what I see in my LinkedIn feed, everyone says comment playbook and my AI automation tool is going to solve everything for you overnight, which is a bunch of bullshit, by the way. I can't stand those posts. There's a process of realizing value once it's implemented, okay? Once it's turned on. So we have to understand realize value to problem solved. There's two different things. So this is where the expert You have to have a point of view. How many sales cycles have you run for your solution? Dozens if you're new, hundreds, maybe thousands if you've been there for a while. How many times have they evaluated your technology? 0, once, maybe twice. You are the expert. So this is where you have to come in with a point of view to say, hey, once you start to realize some wins, let's say we're trying to increase rep productivity, and they start implementing what they're learning. Well, starting to see wins to 1.5x rep productivity, there's a time frame associated. There's a time there. Y'all follow that? Starting to see value to problem completely solved or goal achieved, you can interchange those words. There's a timeline associated to that. So that's where you have to insert that. So that's where you have to be the expert on how long it takes them to solve the problem, achieve the goal once they start to get the wins. All right? Now, after realized value, and we're not, again, we're having this conversation, then this conversation in order. Then we have to talk about change management. Change management, the thing that no one ever talks about in deals. Raise your hand if you sell like a complex tool or solution. Right? Yeah, that's why you can make a lot of money, because you sell complex shit. Well, guess what happens when you implement complex things? You're changing people's day-to-day. So there's a change management aspect to them adopting the solution that's being implemented. And you can't ask them how long is it going to take them to adopt it. This is where you have to insert your point of view. Because again, you've been around hundreds of evaluations and hundreds of implementations. They've been around 0, 1, maybe 2 of a technology similar to yours, but probably 0 of your technology. So this is where you have to insert your point of view from your expertise and say, hey, from my experience, I've seen hundreds of successful implementations, and I've seen a lot of failed implementations. And one of the things that prevented people from achieving their goals and solving the problem by a specific date is not properly planning for the time associated for people just adopting this into their day-to-day. So I want to make sure that we're very conservative on the change management aspect of implementing our tech. And from my experience, once it's officially live, and if I'm an end user, I'm hands on keyboards, whatever it is, it takes 30 to 45 days for people to start to get comfortable. And then once they start to get comfortable, they start to get those wins. Y'all follow that? Now, each one of your tools is different. Some of your tools, there might be, once that they start to adopt it in a week. Could be a month, could be 3 months, whatever that is for you, you have to be the expert. And if you don't know the answer to this, talk to your customer success teams, your implementation teams. Raise your hand if you have like an account management, customer success implementation team. Even customer support. Even if you're a startup. Someone at your company knows how long it takes for people to use the shit that you're selling. Someone does. Some of you are at big companies, some of you are at small companies. Either way, someone knows. Figure that out. That is change management. And you have to come in with a point of view. Then, that part of the conversation, we go to the implementation. We go to the implementation part. Once again, are you the expert or is the buyer the expert? I'm just going to assume you're all with me. You're the expert here. Shame on me, I framed that incorrectly. You're the expert here. So, this is what you come in. Come in with a point of view here. Based on your experience and expertise, how long does it take to implement your solution? Again, this is where you have to talk to your team. And you have to know this. And what you have to do is understand what a conservative timeline is. A conservative timeline is. Because here's the difference between an average rep and an elite rep. An average rep would be like, hey, we can get this up and running in 48 hours. An elite rep will say, look, I've seen 48 hours. I definitely don't want to plan for that because that's like stars align best case scenario. And that's 100% dependent on like you getting us the information that we need. We can move quick. Typically the customers are delay. So best case I've seen in a couple days. I average and I want to be conservative here because I'd rather plan for worst case and hope for best case. Because the last thing I want is for you to miss that deadline for problem solved. So if best case is a few days, let's plan for 2 to 3 weeks. Sound fair? So that's what we're doing with the talk track. That's the implementation time frame. Then we get into the decision. Now, guess what's changed here? Guess what's changed here? Because so far, I'm going to use different colors here. Right here, this is the buyer, is the one that said that when they have the problem solved, right? So this is, then you're coming with a point of view, because you're the one that talks about the time frame of like how long does it take someone to start to realize value to get to the problem solved. You're coming in with a point of view on the time frame it takes to go from change management to start to realize value. You're the one that's coming in with the point of view on how long it takes to effectively implement the solution. Right? And guess what's changing here? We're not asking them when they need to make a decision. Because up here, we're asking the buyer this. We're asking the buyer when they want to go live. And we're asking the buyer when they want to see value. See the difference here? And on this one, we're not asking them when they want to make a decision by. We're telling them as an expert in your field, as someone who's seen how this works, if this is when you're trying to have your problem solved or achieve your goal, this is when we have to make a decision by. So in order for us to do that, let's make sure we're clear on what needs to happen between now and then. And this is where it's a combination of a point of view of what needs to happen as the expert, as well as what needs to happen on the buyer side. Does everyone see the difference here? Right? Everyone see the difference of like one is push. We're pushing towards the decision. We're pushing towards go live. We're pushing towards value. And this is what a good rep does. That's not even what the average rep does. The average rep doesn't even talk about go live and value. But the elite rep is going to talk about, hey, forget about today. Let's talk about when you're trying to have this problem solved by, regardless of what solution you use. This is solution agnostic. That's the beauty of this. And guess who a buyer wants to work with? Someone who's trying to push you to make a decision, or someone who's trying to align on you and when you're trying to have this problem solved by. No brainer. And here's the best part of this. What's our number one goal for every sales interaction that we have? It is very simple. Our number one goal in every interaction that we have is that they leave that interaction saying that's a good use of my time. And I can't even tell you how many times I won deals competing against Salesforce, competing against the big players in the CRM space when I was at a startup and teaching my reps to do this. How many times we won deals simply by saying, hey, look, regardless of who you go with, I want to walk you through best practices so that we can align with when you're trying to have this solved by. Because guess what happens then? I'm no longer a CRM sales rep for base CRM, which was a startup I was at, it's now Zendesk. I'm no longer the person who's selling that CRM. I'm now a CRM expert. And which one are they going to trust more? Someone who's trying to push HubSpot or someone who understands CRM? See the difference? And to revisit a study that I've shared before for some of the newer folks, there was a study done where they interviewed, it was like a couple thousand B2B buyers, and they asked them in a competitive evaluation, when you had similar features and functionality, similar benefits, what was your number one determining factor in choosing the provider? And it wasn't price. It was their experience in the buying process. So if I'm the rep that is working like this, that is a better experience for the buyer. Do y'all agree with that? And this isn't rocket science. Here's the best part. Which one puts more pressure on me as the seller? Where I'm saying, hey, tell me everything I need to do to get you to make a decision and buy. Or, hey, when do you need to have this done by? You tell me. Right? It puts all the pressure, or takes all the pressure off your shoulders and creates a collaborative environment with your buyer. So that's the framework. Now, let me talk through how I would think about this in a deal. So if I'm running a deal and I'm trying to get it across the finish line in Q4, what I would say is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when are you trying to have this problem solved by? What's the drop dead date? Drop dead date with negative consequences. I need to have it solved by Q3. Okay, so when you say by Q3, is that July 1 or is that August 1, October 1? What is that date? Because they'll say Q3. Q3 is a 90-day window. That is a massive window, right? Even if they say, I need it done by June, I'm going to say beginning of June or the end of June. 30 days. You want to blow your forecast, 30 days is a lot. So when do you need to have this problem solved by? Okay, so June 1, no matter what, come hell or high water, it's got to be solved, right? Okay, so from my experience, there's a few aspects of how we think about this to make sure that you're set up for June 1. Now, I'm going to walk you through how we think about it, but just so you know, this is solution agnostic. So whether or not you choose us, whether or not you work with someone else, I just want to make sure you're set up by June 1. Because the last thing that I would want to do, even if you end up working with us, is to say, to find out, June 30th, this problem isn't solved. So I just want to get really crystal clear with you. I'm reversing engineering the path to get there. So are you cool if I walk you through this to make sure that we're really aligned on the key milestones in order to set you up for June 1? Sound good? And think about that talk track. Are they going to say no to that? Of course not. Because what am I saying? Hey, solution agnostic, this isn't about us. The last thing I want is if you do choose us, you're mad at me, right? Because that's what every buyer's thinking. And if you're the one that's calling it out, I'm immediately raising my status to them. So they're going to buy into this. And by the way, anyone that doesn't, 99% of the time, that's not a real deal. So anyone that gives you like pushback through this talk track, easy way to qualify them out. Tells me it's not a real deal. But that's just besides the point. So June 1, drop dead deadline, you're trying to do this. All right. So from my experience, there's a few key milestones. So there's when we realize value, there's a change management aspect, there's an implementation aspect, and then of course there's the contract execution. So let me talk through some of them, the timeframes and the milestones. And just, I want to be conservative with you because I could tell you, hey, we can get this thing stood up in 7 days when, yes, that's physically possible, but that's the stars aligned. So are you cool if I'm like more conservative with you? Just so we're like very realistic, because the last thing I want to do is like try to jam this down your throat. Yes. All right. So from my experience doing this, the gap between problem solved and realized value, I'm going to put this in red here. So June 1's our drop dead day. So from here, the gap that I see from realized value to problem solved is about 30 days. So about a month, just so you know. Because it takes time for them to use it. Like they're getting wins, don't get me wrong. But like getting wins and problem solved are two different things. Because you said it's like 1.5x. Like I want tangible ROI for you. Okay. So for us, it's about a month. So my estimate for you, again, I want to be conservative. Could we do it faster? Of course, but I want to be conservative. So I'd say end of April is really when I would say like we really want to be seeing wins. Okay. Now, before we see wins, there's typically a change management aspect. Now, when I say change management, you're integrating new workflows, right? I mean, even if someone goes from like, GoToWebinar to Zoom, right? People got to get used to it. People go from Outlook to Gmail. People got to get used to using it, right? So there's typically a change management aspect. And from what I see, it's probably about 30 days. I'd say maybe a little short, but let's say about a month for people to really get comfortable using it, because there's going to be some hand-holding, some training, some things to just help people get comfortable using the system. So to set ourselves up there, we're probably looking for your end of March to do this. Now, implementation, I've seen implementations take 2 weeks. I've seen implementations, take 6 months. So what I would want to do is, and let's plan conservatively here, given your environment, I want to be very, very, very realistic. I think like absolute best case scenario, we're probably looking at like 30 to 45 days. Worst case scenario, 6 months. So what I would recommend is we probably look at 90 to 120 days here. So what I would say, like just to be conservative, I'd probably say that gets us to right about your Jan 1. So it's like 12/31. Now, what I'd want to do, and that's beginning the implementation. Okay. So before we begin the implementation, we have like contract execution, those types of things. And then once the contract's executed, then we got to tee up to begin the implementation process. So that right there, that's about, I'd say, 2 weeks, because we have the holidays, we have Christmas, things going on. And then of course, like I want to make sure that you're at the front of the queue, because the last thing I would want to do is like have you rush to sign on New Year's Eve, and then we can't get you to start the implementation process till like mid-January, which happens with a lot of people. I've seen this before. And then we're already behind the 8 ball. Okay. So what I would say here in terms of like decision and like contract execution, I'd probably say we want to be targeting around mid-month. Today is the 2nd. So you're looking on the calendar, I'd say, and I'm pulling up the calendar in real time here. So the 15th is a Monday. So I'd probably say, just to be safe, I'd probably target the 12th, which is a Friday. And then if we bleed into like the 15th, 16th, 17th, totally okay. But that way we're not jumping down your throats. Okay. So what I would love to understand is what needs to happen on your side in order for us to get there. And then of course, I want to walk you through the outstanding steps that need to happen on our end to make sure that you're set up for success so you can make an educated decision. But from my experience, like that's what the timeline looks like. My most important question for you is, it's the second. I know we're on a tight window, so pretty much have 2 weeks. I know we've done a couple demos and scoping things out, but we still have some things to go. Help me understand, like, because we have a tight window, what's stopping us from getting this done, right? What needs to happen? Because I'm assuming we need to pull some strings to get people to ultimately decide and execute an agreement by then. Help me understand what that looks like, because we are on a short window. So let's pause here. So notice how I'm point of view. Hey, I want to be conservative. I want to make sure you don't miss your deadline. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Hey, I could see this being as fast as this, but I'd hate to like try to jam something down your throat. Hey, this is my recommendation here. I'd hate to put you behind the 8 ball. And not, can this be done by the 15th? It's, hey, what needs to happen for this to be done by the 15th? Big difference. So you'll notice a difference in the talk tracks. And through that whole thing, did it feel, and put yourself in the buyer's shoes, did it feel like you're being sold to? Or did it feel like I was giving you expertise? And that's the key difference here. That's the key difference here. If we focus on being an expert and a partner for them, and one of the things I forgot to mention is like through that whole thing, I was also talking about best practices, regardless of what solution. And I could have done that a little bit more if I'm giving myself some critical feedback after doing that self-role play. I could have inserted that a couple more times around like industry stuff. A lot of my talk track was more on us, but you take that. Is this helpful? Yes? Do we feel better about our game plan to execute our plans now? All right? We have 15 minutes left. I want to open up to questions. So if you just type Q or question in the chat, I'm going to go in order. So no silly question, just write the word question or Q in the chat and I'll just go in order. All right, Mr. Mark.
Hey, Justin. So at what point in the conversation would you start this process with them? Would you do it towards the end of the discovery call or after you're already in the solution building phase? Or like, when would you start rolling out this process?
So the question is, when do I start to reverse engineer the path to align with them on when they're trying to get this problem solved by, to reverse engineer the process?
Yes.
I mean, I'm doing this in the first meeting. Because in the first meeting, I'm trying to align on your timeline, the compelling event, those types of things, like we're qualifying the deal. Right? So this is a part of my natural qualification process. Now, depending on how the deal comes in, if it's like an inbound demo request, I'm not going to spend 45 minutes running through this because that's going to turn off the buyer. But I'm going to set the expectation when I frame the call, saying, hey, the purpose of the conversation today is to see if it makes sense for us to do an evaluation. I know you requested a demo, so we'll make sure we're going to give you an understanding of like how our solution works. But of course, I want to spend some time digging into current state, what your goals are. And then after the demonstration, I want to make sure if there is interest, if we both think there's a fit, I want to make sure we spend 10 minutes just talking through high level what the key milestones are based on when you're trying to get achieve your goals by. So then if there is interest and an evaluation on your side, and I also believe that we can help, we can make sure we have a rock solid plan going forward. Does that answer your question? Okay. Let me jump in the chat. Ken, what's your question? No? No question, Ken?
If I accidentally raised my hand, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Will? Will? Who said that?
Yeah, it's Will. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed.
I was just.
Yeah.
No, you're good. I don't have my phone. I need to update that. Do you have like a document or like case study that you could share that potentially outside this meeting apply it to our specific solution? If that makes any sense. Like this is just a framework, right? Like, do you have like a real life example, maybe in like a document form that shows us kind of how to go through this, and then we can kind of like pick and choose, not pick and choose, but kind of a framework that we can go off of outside of this, like a real life example, or no?
Well, this framework walks you through exactly how to do it.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, because the reality is, the real life example is going to be different technology, different solution, different buyer, different time frames, doing all of that, right? So this is where like I'm teaching you how to fish here, so you can apply it to your environment. So that's why I use this training. That's why when I walked you through the framework, that's why I said, hey, now I'm going to walk you through a real life example. Like, here's how I would do this. You know what I mean? Right. So you can just use this to apply it to your deals. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. Michael, what's your question?
Yeah, so my question was, you said you do this on the first meeting. Is it during discovery, after we've gotten all the impact and pain points, or is this after we demoed the solutions? I think you answered it a little bit before. You don't want to drain the customer and fatigue them at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think about this. I want to do this as early as possible. So the question is, when I think about reverse engineering the path to build an effective mutual plan that is creating a pull partner environment and not trying to push my agenda on theirs, right? That's the question. So I think of it as I want to do as early as possible in the cycle, as soon as it becomes real. Now, the question is like, well, how do you determine if it's real? Right? If you determine that it's real, it's, hey, can we solve what they're looking to do? Is there a path to acquire budget? Are we aligned with the right people? And is there insight into like what the timeline is? So in that first conversation, like right away, inbound discovery, whatever it is, in that qualifying conversation, in the first 10 minutes, I'm asking them, hey, when do you want to get this solved by? Right? And then I could revisit that after the demo or discovery, whatever that first meeting is for you. And again, if it's like an inbound demo request, because a lot of companies have that, or your BDR set up a discovery meeting, however that first meeting came to be, right? I mean, I'm asking that 5 minutes into the interaction. And you decided to give me your most precious commodity, which is your time. What sparked your interest? Usually there's a problem or a goal that you're trying to achieve. Help me understand what that is for your organization. Okay, so that's your goal. So help me understand, because if we're going to work together, I want to make sure that I'm helping you grow your business, by either helping you, focusing on, increasing things or putting out fires, right? It's usually one or the other that we're doing. So for you, what is that fire that we're putting out or that goal? And not what the ideal time frame is, because I like to operate off of deadlines versus best case scenario, because I just like to operate more conservatively with my customers. So what's the drop dead date of when you need to have this solved by? Right. And you're asking that really early in the evaluation.
Gotcha. After you go through the perfect disco framework, you get costed action. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and you're doing that in that. You're doing that in that. You're coming at the point of view of how I think we can help you based on other folks that we worked with, help me understand the current state, future state, or what's the gap in the current state, like the linchpin that's missing. All right. Now, when do we need to solve that linchpin by? So that's all like the pain, right?
Got you. Okay. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Very good.
Okay. Then. Okay. That's the last question in the chat. We got 8 minutes left. I'm an open book on this. Fire away. Roger, what you got?
Yeah, thank you for the training, Justin. It's similar to one of the training calls that I jumped on Thursday, I think a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if you remember, but you kind of told me to use this framework when I'm talking to my champion. To go a little bit, past this framework, when I had this conversation with my champion, towards the end of the conversation, like, what do we need to do in order to hit this deadline? We have already submitted proposals, pricing, everything of that nature, and they are holding us off because the other vendors that they're getting pricing from haven't gotten their stuff scoped out yet. So I was just curious how we can, in the theme of getting these deals closed in Q4, what can I kind of do to tell them to fuck to them if they're not getting your pricing? We're here to play ball.
So the question is, I submitted my proposals, I'm working my champion, and I still feel like I'm getting the Heisman. How do I get my deals across the finish line in Q4?
Yes.
All right. My gut says you don't have a real champion. Because a real champion is going to give you insights into how to win the deal right now. Because a real champion has done a couple things. Number one, they've told you, hey, you are my vendor of choice. I know we're getting proposals and quotes from X, Y, Z other people, but I don't want to work with them. You're my guy. Right? And that's like black and white. Not, hey, I really like this so far. It's, no, it's you. There's a very big difference. Right? So number one, like that's the thing that's a requirement for someone to be a true champion. Number two, for someone to be a vetted champion, they have had to give you insight behind the scenes on how to win the deal. And if they haven't given you the inside scoop into what the competitors are doing, or the inside scoop into, hey, how to overcome a key objection that you're going to get from a skeptical stakeholder, something along those lines, right? Something that's, I like to say, like, they're no longer on the other side of the table, they're on your side of the table. If you haven't got that type of insight, you don't have a vetted champion. And the third is they have had to get you they're willing to get you in the room and facilitate those meetings to help you win. So that's my harsh truth of this situation. Now let me tell you like what I'd be doing now, okay? Because I can't just call your baby ugly without giving a little bit of a plan. So you're quote unquote champion. Immediately after this meeting, I'm calling them up and I'm trying to get clarity on where they stand with my solution. And what I'm going to say is, look, we've had conversations around our solution, we've had conversations around other solutions. If this was your decision, would we be the vendor of choice, or do you still have some outstanding concerns? It's totally okay if you do, but I want to get alignment with you because if we're going to partner together going forward, I want to make sure there's absolutely no concerns on your side. I know the company still has to go through a process to vet out all the vendors, but take all the other stakeholders out of the equation. If this is your call 100%, is there any reason why you wouldn't choose us over the competitors? And the answer to that is going to be their outstanding concerns. And then you have to make a judgment call. Can I overcome those concerns of this person quickly enough, right? Or do I need to find another potential champion? So you need to evaluate the conversations you're having and the stakeholders you're aligned with. So I'm doing that. If they say, no, you are the vendor of choice, you're my guy. So they pass that test. Say, great. So are you willing to be my champion and help me win this? I'm going to ask it that black and white. Because they've already said, hey, I want you. Great. Since you said you want me, any reason why you're not wanting to partner with me to help us get to the cross the finish line? Because I would love the opportunity to work with you. And I know it can help you. And again, whatever their concern is, you have to decide, okay, are they a real champion? Because a champion is going to fight for you behind closed doors. Now, they might be someone that loves you, but they might not have juice in the organization. If they don't have any influence in the organization, they're just someone that can give you insight, but they can't be a real champion. So you got to find someone that has more power in the organization. So you might leverage that person to get you intro to the person who could be your other potential champion. So right here, like when we're at the finish line like this, we're leveraging our champion to get deals across the finish line. But we first have to make sure that we have a champion. And my gut tells me you don't.
Yeah, she's giving me a lot of mixed signals.
There's no mixed signals with a champion. There's zero mixed signals with a champion. A real champion is like, yeah, fuck those other guys. Right? Obviously, they're probably not going to swear, but you're going to know that you're the guy. And if someone is being coy, that's where you ask those very direct questions, because direct questions get direct answers. That's where you're at.
Understood.
Helpful?
Absolutely.
All right. I got a couple minutes left. Any other questions? Throw the questions in the chat or write the word question. Don't jump on it. Before people jump, remember, next 4 weeks, we're doing a series to help you set yourself up for 2026. So if you jumped on the call late, be on those calls so I can break down goal setting frameworks so that you can set yourself up to win 2026. All right, Michael, coming back to you, I think.
Yes. So just quickly here. So between realized value and change management on that line you have, what's the big difference between those two and then problem solve?
So, all right, let me give you an example. So how long have you been in SRA?
About 4 weeks.
Okay. So what was your first win?
Framework.
Okay. So that was your first realization of like, oh, these guys aren't full of shit. There's actually value here, right? But I'd probably say it's fair to assume you haven't closed massive deals because of the perfect framework yet.
Correct.
Right? So you haven't got that full payoff. You see what I mean? That's the difference. So it's the same thing for your buyers. So what are you selling?
CRM to contractors.
Okay, perfect. So the first win for a contractor might be, hey, wow, I was able to create that estimate in like 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. Right? That first the light bulb. I call that the light bulb moment. Right? Then problem solved is like, okay, then because I was able to do all these estimates in 10 minutes instead of 2 hours, I was able to go on 5 more appointments a week. And because of that, we were able to close another 4 deals that week that we wouldn't have done otherwise. See that?
Yeah.
That's the difference. So like, because when they buy your technology, what's the contractor CRM? What is it?
Service plan.
Okay. I don't service anymore. So when they're doing it, it's like, all right, there's a reason why they invested in your technology or they want to invest. Right? That's that problem solved. Right? And if it's, oh, we want to do more appointments. Right? If it's contractors, typically it's like we want to do more appointments on a weekly basis so we can close more deals per sales rep, or do more service calls, right? So then they could bill more to the clients, or increase efficiency for profitability, right? It's like, that's what like it's all coming down to with CRM. So it's like, what are the light bulb moments versus, okay, when was the payoff from those light bulb moments?
And that's how I'm describing it to them.
Yeah, yeah, you can say it just like that. Whatever their thing is, the problem solved, right? Because if you're the one that's saying light bulb versus problem solved, or initial win versus problem solved, your status skyrockets to them. Because the other rep is gonna say, if they're even a good rep, which most reps aren't, they're gonna talk about, oh, you're gonna turn the CRM on Jan 1, and you're gonna get a ton of value by Feb 1. Problem's gonna be solved Feb 1. When a buyer, they just don't believe that, because it's not true.
Right. I've been called out for that.
Exactly. Because then you're like, oh, now you're just salesy. Right? Where a true trusted advisor is gonna say, hey, we're not gonna solve your problem all at once. We're gonna get those light bulb moments, those wins. And then with our implementation teams, once we have those wins, bam, now we're on the right track. And typically that comes X days, 30 days, 14 days, 45 days after it's gone live, because that's like the change management part.
Gotcha.
Right? Then when they start using it to do estimates when they're doing service calls, right? You're gonna get some initial feedback from your team around like, oh wow, I was able to do 4 service calls, or 6 service calls when I normally do 4 in a day. That was really cool, right? And that's when you start to see the wins, and then your team's like, this is great. Then people lean in more and more and more and more. Then everyone's doing 6 instead of 4, and then we look at, okay, with a 50% increase in service calls done per rep, how many reps do we have? 20 reps. Okay, well, if we look at that over, another 60 days, we're fair to assume that now everyone is at that 6 appointments a day versus 4. Because with that 6 versus 4, we're gonna get, 1 out of those 2 extra service calls, they're gonna get an extra HVAC ticket closed for $500. I'm making it up, right? Follow that? Everyone follow that? Understand the difference? It's a really good question. I got a couple more minutes. What other questions we have? All right, folks, this is helpful. All right, implement this, go kick some ass. I'll see y'all next week. And let's set yourself up for an incredible 2026. Happy December. Go make some money. I'll talk to you later. Peace.